You're listening to Three Kitchens, a member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. Join your hosts, Heather Dyer, Sarah Somasundaram, and Aaron Walker, for good food and some fun in the kitchen.
Hey everybody, we have a podcast recommendation for you, our fellow APN member Mess Hall podcast. Join hosts Avery and Lena as they sample, rate, and talk about fun food. I like this podcast, obviously because they talk about food, but they also throw in some history and fun facts about each episode's food theme. I listened the other day to one about marshmallows. Remember those marshmallow candies in the shape of strawberries? Turns out Lena's a huge fan. I'm not sure I was. Anyway, they're a married couple, so you know there'll be some disagreements and fun ridicule in their banter. So check them out. You can find Mess Hall Podcast wherever you listen, and you'll also find them at messhallpodcast.podbean.com. For more fun and informative shows, go to albertapodcastnetwork.com. So welcome listeners and co-hosts. So this, I believe, is our 10th episode in season 2.
Ooh,
season 2 means really kind of nothing because it was very arbitrary when we decided we just wanted a break. doesn't make any difference. But I think we're up to like 32 episodes or something.
Nice.
Wow.
Which is kind of fun. We're up like cranking this stuff out.
And I feel like I can't get enough recipes in. Like, I feel like my list of recipes just keeps growing and I'm like, I can't keep up. It's like my book reading list. I can't keep up with it.
I know. And then every time you have to pick one, it's like, oh, I don't know. I want to make this, but then I want to make that.
Right.
I don't know which one to pick.
Mm-hmm.
And how much energy have I got? Because some of them require more than others.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Or time, or just available time, right? And we were talking a little while ago about carbs. Well, here comes some more carbs. I'm very sorry, but
right after Halloween.
Carbs.
Perfect.
I know. Well,
Yes.
I had some baking ideas and I was like, I don't think I want more sugar. Not that it stopped me from eating just now, the sugar, but I don't feel like baking.
So speaking of Halloween, speaking of carbs and sugar, how was Halloween?
It was cold out. Not that the kids seemed to mind.
Yeah, it was warm. I wore lots and lots of layers. So I actually was really hot getting ready to go outside because by the time I got everything on, which is something I absolutely hate about winter because I'm so bundled up and then you go to bend down to put your winter boots on and you're like...
Sweat starts dripping out of your collar.
Oh, it's awful.
Yeah.
And worse when you have to get in a car and then you're like, oh my God, and now I'm like hot. Oh, wow. Yeah, Halloween was good. We didn't have too many kids, it seemed, but that's okay. My kids had a great time. There's a lot of candy here, so obviously they enjoyed it.
We trick-or-treated with our kids. Thank you, Sarah, for helping us
Oh
with
my
our
God,
costumes.
Aaron. I sort of zoomed into your picture and he did not recognize you. Like, and I did not recognize you.
No.
Like nobody, I don't think, like if you had seen, Aaron, what was your costume? What was yours and your husband's costume?
So my husband and I went as the Wet Bandits from the 1992 film, I believe, Home Alone.
Right.
So we were Harry and Marv.
And you were unrecognizable.
Yeah.
We had so much
It was
fun.
weird. It was weird.
Bizarre, but it was good. It was good, but like, that's good. That's
you
good.
should have seen the looks that I was getting walking down the street because people looked at me and they were like, clearly something's going on here, but I don't really know what. And sometimes they would come to and realize and be like, oh, good costume.
But your husband looked like your husband, though.
Well, yeah.
It was you. Yeah. I think that was throwing people off.
Yeah, I think so.
Because you had a wig on.
I painted on some facial hair for the night. It was,
Oh my God, that was so good.
So my kids went out for a little bit with us. We toured them around.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were like, man, it is too cold out. So we're like, if you want to keep going, you guys go ahead. Well, poor choice on our hand because it was kind of near the end of the night. And at the end of the night, you just want the candy out of your house. So you start handing out ridiculous amounts to the kids who come to your door. My kids have a superstore shopping bin full of candy.
Each?
Each. I have 2 superstore shopping bins full of candy. It is a disgusting amount.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what we're going to do.
You can donate it to the NICU Family Care
Right.
organization. They collect it.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
It's always what I do with what I managed to get from them.
Yes, Halloween was a fun time. We had a good time.
It's always fun. Halloween is my favorite celebration. I love Halloween. I go crazy decorating the house. And this time we had a fifth family member, our four-legged friend, Archie, who had to dress up like a Ghostbuster along with his mom and dad. So it was three of us, and Archie was carrying a proton, is that what they're called? Proton packs?
I think so.
On
That
his
sounds
back?
right.
Cute.
Yeah, and so it was
Aw.
like all three of us, and then the kids who no longer want to dress up like their parents and
Yeah.
do a family theme anymore. That's okay.
Yeah.
We've got Archie. Poor
Exactly.
Archie.
See, he'll never stop loving that.
Yeah, that's right.
You got to train him young.
Yes, no choice.
He won't grow out of it like the children. And if he does, he can't communicate it. So
That's exactly it. It's not that he doesn't like it. He likes it or
Oh,
doesn't like it. He
They
doesn't.
can communicate that. Rio refuses to wear a
Oh,
costume.
that's right.
And I
Yeah.
tried right from the very start. I had the cutest little tutu for her. No way was she wearing that thing. Like she practically tore it apart trying to get it off herself.
All I ask is for Halloween and maybe one Christmas picture.
There
If
you
you can
go.
give me that, I promise I'll never dress him up for any other occasion. I'll be good. Okay, so who's cooking what? So we're talking about sugar and carbs.
we haven't had enough. So give us some more, please, Heather.
You got it. Your wish is
Woohoo!
my command. I am making soft pretzels.
Oh,
I've never made these
yeah.
before. And I was going to make bagels. And then I thought, this sounds similar. And I actually like a pretzel better than a bagel,
Okay.
Mhm.
even though they're
Me
very
too.
similar. Well, I'm going to go with pretzels.
This sounds like the perfect thing that I need in my life.
Yeah.
Does it?
No, for real.
I don't know, but
And for lunches, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only will I like it, but I'm pretty convinced that my children will also love it.
yes.
And yeah, I this is what I
agree.
need in my life. I am not being sarcastic. I truly do feel that way, Heather. So
Well, I will be sharing for sure because if I have all these pretzels in my house,
Mhm.
I will eat them. And as we've discussed, that's not always a good thing for me.
Yes.
So,
hand them over. Hand them over.
yeah, I absolutely will. All right. So it's a yeast dough, even though
Okay.
they don't like rise a whole bunch.
Mhm.
It's kind of basic. You're looking at yeast, salt, sugar, butter, flour, and that's it. According to this recipe, but I haven't nailed one down exactly.
okay.
It does not need a lot of time to rise. It's like,
Mm.
you know, you make your dough, you leave it in your ball, you let it sit. It just sits for maybe 10, 20 minutes. Like it's not
Okay.
it's not an overnight dough or anything like that. It's very short, quick.
Have you buffed up on your first rise, second rise, proof?
No,
Bulk fermentation.
I don't know anything about, all I know is it has to rest. It's going to rest for not long. Okay. And while it's, so stop it. While it's
Aw.
resting, you get some water boiling with baking soda in it.
Okay.
Ah.
And you're going to boil your pretzels before you bake them. And that gives them that brown kind of
Oh, that
crusty
sheen. Okay.
outside.
Yes.
And the inside stays soft, and you bake them at a high temp. I think it's a 400 degree. Yeah, about a 400 degree bake because you want them to bake quickly, and the outside will brown because of the baking soda, and then the inside stays soft.
Okay.
That's the goal.
Yes, I'm very interested about the method in which
Yeah.
you make these. The dough doesn't sound super exciting, but I think it's the method of how you make it that's changing the game.
And originally, these were made by boiling them in a lye solution. So water and lye, food grade lye.
What's lye? I don't know what lye is.
It's something that makes your water very basic, which is what your
Yeah.
baking soda is doing too. You want to
Mhm.
boil it in a basic solution.
Oh, okay, okay. Not acidic. Okay, right, right.
Right. And lye, you have to like wear gloves and I think a mask, and like you have to be extremely careful handling it. And I was like, there's no way I am attempting that traditional method.
Yeah.
Somebody was kind enough to figure out that you could use a different method, and that's what I'm going to use, baking soda instead of lye. Although apparently it's still used. People do it that way. Probably, I would think a real authentic bakery probably does it that way.
I was going to say like a commercial facility, maybe.
Yeah, probably, because that would be, I would think you'd get the perfect texture that you're looking for with it. But we're going to go with the baking soda. It's like half a cup of baking soda in like 9 cups of water. So once it's sat, you've got your water going, you're going to portion them out, roll them into like a rope, fold them into your pretzel shape, then put them in the water. And I imagine you could only do a couple at a time because you don't want them sticking to each other in the pot. So you boil them. I think it's only like 30 seconds or something. And then they go on a sheet to go in the oven and bake. About 15 minutes or until golden brown. So we'll see.
Is there a reason why fold it in that shape with the little loops and everything?
I don't actually know. And honestly, I like to try to find the history behind these things, and it's disputed there. I mean, you always think of it as a German, a Bavarian thing. And I think it definitely has a long history there, but the same kind of thing is found in lots of different places, apparently. So I'm not exactly sure where it originated, but it definitely it's known as a German thing. So I don't know, whoever first decided to make them tied them into a knot. It's not really a knot. It's just like you're kind of looping it over. Anyway, everybody knows what a pretzel looks like. But
yeah, I'm just thinking because then you can make different shapes.
I think you could. Yeah. And have you ever seen some recipes are like pretzel bites? So they're just like small size, like bite size.
Yes.
So they're just, you would make your rope sort of thing and just cut them and then make them like that. Even though I think it's traditionally a European thing, in the States, I guess they like to dip them. And something I keep coming across when I'm looking at pretzels is beer cheese dip. So I'm going to make beer cheese dip and we're going to try that out.
Okay. That sounds interesting.
I've had pretzels. Yeah, I've never dipped them in anything, but it sounds good. I like the idea of this.
Yum.
So a beer cheese dip has butter, flour. So you're making like a roux, Dijon mustard, Worcestershire, garlic, salt, pepper, cayenne, milk, beer, and cheese.
Love it already.
Yeah.
I haven't tasted it, but I like it.
Exactly what I need in my life.
It does sound really tasty. And I mean, there's different variations. There's also, I mean, a mustard kind of sauce is also popular. I'm not as big a fan of mustard personally, so I like the idea of the beer cheese a little better than a mustard dip, although maybe I would love it. I don't know.
You got mustard in your beer cheese sauce, which if you ask me is critical. So,
It's only a teaspoon.
Oh, a little bit of mustard goes a long way.
Okay, awesome.
I put mustard in a lot of my cheese sauces.
Oh.
It's known as my secret ingredient when I make my mac and cheese.
Now, do you use like prepared mustard or like mustard powder?
Prepared mustard. Mustard in cheese sauce. Next time you make a homemade mac and cheese, about a teaspoon, squirt it in there. If you like Dijon mustard, if you like honey mustard, I love it. My kids love it. Even if you don't like mustard, you'll probably like it in the cheese sauce.
Not secret anymore. Now our millions of listeners also know your secret. All right. Well, pretzels, I think they're good at any temperature, but they say eat them warm, eat your beer cheddar sauce warm. So I'm thinking this is going to be a nice snack on a chilly day as we've been having.
Totally.
Maybe beer on the side.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Sounds good.
That'll be perfect. Actually, I'm not a beer fan, but that actually sounds like I need to have a beer with a pretzel.
Yep. I think so. I think so too. Yeah. And that's it. I think it's relatively easy as long as they don't fall apart. I'm a little concerned about how they actually hold their shape in boiling and in and out of water. And
yeah, the process is going to be really interesting to learn from. So go try it out. Tell us all your tips and tricks, Heather, and then I'll try it out when you've figured out all the when you've got the 2.0 method.
I will test and report back.
With all the recipes you've been looking at, you know how some pretzels have toppings when you go to those little pretzel huts and stuff where you get like all sorts of, how would you do that? Would you do the pretzel toppings before you put them into the oven?
I think so. You definitely, like for a basic one like this, you definitely salt it before you put it in the oven.
Okay.
Coarse salt. And because it bakes fast, it's not breaking down. Like the salt is not going to melt into it because it's high temperature, quick bake, like 15 minutes.
So it's all on the outside.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be good with like Parmesan cheese and rosemary?
Yeah.
Mm.
Like the pizza kind of pretzel. Those are my favorites with the pepperoni on it.
Ooh,
Oh, yum.
Some of them are stuffed. That I don't know how. That would be hard because those are like thin.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And like, how would you stuff something a shape like that?
I have no idea. That sounds very complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually come across any stuffed
Right.
pretzel recipes. Yeah, I think just doing the basic one is enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'll come down to the sauce. The dip is going to be the extra bit, right?
That's going to be so good too. No question about it.
So what is the difference between pretzels and pretzels? So you know how you've got the pretzel sticks or those kind of crackers.
Oh, the smaller ones.
And then you've got the bready ones.
So the bread pretzel is the traditional that came first.
Okay.
I don't really know anything about how they came about, like the hard, crunchy
Yeah.
chip kind.
Completely different, right? The two different things. Okay.
I think probably they were inspired by, but I would think they're not. It's more like a cracker.
Yeah,
right?
it's more like
that.
a cracker. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm not making those.
No.
I don't know if you can.
I don't
actually.
even
know
like
if-
those that much anyway.
No. Maybe the pretzels are also like boiled and baked. Maybe that's the only thing.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
Make me some carbs and some cheese sauce, and I'm gonna get some beers.
You get your beers.
I'm gonna feel nice and bloated at the end of this.
Oh yeah. Well, think about me with cheese sauce. I don't know how this is gonna go exactly.
All right.
But I'm kind of determined.
Today's episode of Three Kitchens is sponsored by Pod Power. With Pod Power, our sponsors are making it possible for us to amplify the voices of Albertans with Alberta podcasters. This episode, the Edmonton Community Foundation is helping us give a Pod Power shout out to Bookwoman.
Bookwomen is a podcast about editing, publishing, and writing Indigenous stories. 3 Métis librarians representing nations from across the homeland aim to inspire Indigenous peoples to share their stories in whatever form that they enjoy.
Guests include Indigenous stories from diverse mediums like podcasting, burlesque, books, comics, social media, films, music, and everything in between. You can listen and find out more at bookwomenpodcast.ca.
How did the pretzel making go? Because I know tasted. You dropped it off yesterday, but
Heather, the pretzel lady.
Oof.
The pretzel lady. I don't think I'll take that on as my new moniker or anything. I liked the pretzel. I didn't love the pretzel. So, okay, let me talk about how to make it. It was really easy to make. It's a simple dough where you're just mixing, your active dry yeast with warm water, salt, brown sugar, melted butter, and then you're mixing in your flour. And I think I ended up using about 500 grams of flour to get it to a ball of dough that wasn't too sticky, that I could knead. And then you knead it for like 3 minutes or something, let it sit for 10, and then you're good to go.
Did you do that by hand or did your mixer knead for you?
I mixed it with the dough hook in the mixer, but then I kneaded it just on the counter by hand.
Oh, awesome.
It's really soft and like easy to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So the dough itself is like easy to make. I think anybody could do it if I can do it. Simple ingredients, nothing fancy. So then while it's sitting, boil your water, 9 cups of water to half a cup of baking soda.
Okay,
Right.
And you get that going. And don't do as I did and boil the water and then put the baking soda into it.
What does this foam up? Yeah.
I had a little bit of a mess. I was like, whoa. Oops. Maybe put it in before you boil it. I don't know. Okay. No big deal. So this recipe is from Sally's Baking Addiction.
Okay.
Her recipes are usually really good.
Yeah, I like hers too.
Yeah. Straightforward. It's called Easy Homemade Soft Pretzel. And it really is easy. I found that the trickiest part of it really was rolling out the individual pieces. So this makes 12 pretzels. So I divided it into 4 pieces and then left the dough under the towel and worked with one at a time.
Right.
So I made 3 pretzels at a time, basically, because I didn't know how long they could sit. I wanted to keep it covered. I was sort of like, I wanted to boil it one at a time, even though I think she says you could do 2 or 3 at once, but I was a little nervous about the boiling bit of it. So rolling it out to get kind of like that long log piece that you're working with, it's like, it kind of is elastic. So as I'm rolling, it's just shrinking back. I'm like, stop it. It was at first, but by the end it was fine. It was working fine. But the first few pieces, I was like, wow, it's never going to get, I forget how long she said to make it, like 20 to 22 inches.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, it's never going to get that long. So a couple of the first ones were really small and like fatter because I couldn't get it to roll out.
Oh, that's so cute.
That was probably the hardest bit of it.
Is there a tip to why? Okay, so why did you find it easier later on?
Beats me. I don't know. Maybe you do you think like because it's sitting, something happens with the gluten that it? I don't know. Like you're the bread people. Maybe you know.
Bread.
I have issues with my pizza dough doing that. Whenever I roll out my pizza dough, like I roll it out and then it all
shrinks back.
Shrinks back.
Me too.
Right.
So you know what I did was I lifted up the rope and I kind of did put it between my hands. I don't know how to describe what I'm doing, but kind of roll it between your hands up in the air and then kind of move it along and
let the gravity do some of the work. Right. Okay.
Get some of the stretch going. Yeah.
And kind of just like stretch it over my hands because it was so elastic. And then once you form your little pretzel shape, I kind of pinched the ends together, but it doesn't really like stick. So I was really nervous that when I lifted it and put it into the water, it was going to fall apart. But it didn't.
Nice.
It held and it just boiled up. And she says to do 20 to 30 seconds, any more than that, and your pretzels will have a metallic taste. So I was really nervous that I was going to screw up the flavor by leaving it too long. So I did I tried to count like at a regular pace, not a gym pace where we count out our plank.
Okay, 30 seconds is how fast I can count to 30 and go.
Plank is done. So not like that, but like just counted to 20 and then I pulled it out and put it onto I used my silicone, my Silpat baking sheet.
Oh, nice.
Which worked perfectly. I didn't have to grease it or anything like that. And then you bake it at 400 for 12 to 15 minutes or until golden brown. And I think mine took about 13-ish minutes. Okay. So right kind of in the middle of that. So I did 3 at a time, which does take some time. And I kind of wondered if over time, by the time I got to the end, was the baking soda, was my water bath still, I don't know, does baking soda eventually sort of boil
absorb
away?
into the dough, you mean, or something, and then less at the end?
I think what would happen is as you boil your water, it's just going to become more concentrated over time.
Oh, so the opposite of what I was thinking.
That would be my guess, because that's usually what happens as you reduce something is you're just taking away the only thing going up should be just water vapor.
Right. That makes sense.
Why? Did something change toward the end?
I would say the last few were probably darker colors. So maybe that's why. Okay. That could be. Because I think that is part of the reason for the bath is for it to get that kind of crispy brown outside.
Right.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. I didn't change out the water or anything. I just left it boiling while I baked, and then I put in the next ones. And apparently you can cover and refrigerate the boiled, unbaked pretzels and then bake them later, up to 24 hours later. So if you wanted to make them the night before, bake them in the morning or whatever, you could do that.
What was the texture and what were they like when they came out of the boiling water? Did they hold their shape? Were they kind of semi-cooked-ish, or were they kind of wet floppy dough that you had to flop on?
Yeah, they held their shape. I don't really know. I mean, I wasn't touching it. I just picked it up with a slotted spatula. When you first put it in, they kind of sink, and then about 3 seconds later, they pop up.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then after 20 seconds, I just lifted it out. Yeah, they totally held their shape. It was kind of fun.
That is interesting. Yeah.
When did you put your salt on at that point?
Yeah, when they're wet, when they came out of the water bath. put whatever you're going to top it with, and then bake it in the oven.
Okay.
And did you put any fat on there after?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, nothing.
Okay.
And we had talked before about stuffed pretzels, and just out of curiosity, I looked up recipes for stuffed ones. So what you would do is when you have your long rope, you would roll it flat with a rolling pin, and then put your filling along, and then kind of roll it up like jelly roll style.
Yeah.
Roll it up and try to pinch it closed,
Right.
and then form your pretzel. So you would want
Okay.
your chocolate or cheese or whatever you're putting in there to be kind of cold. You don't want it to be
right.
to melt immediately, but you want it to be able to move so you could shape your pretzel, or you could cut them into those pretzel bites,
Right.
little pieces, and just kind of close up the ends.
Right.
So that's how you do that. I did not attempt to stuff any, but I would. I think that would be kind of fun. And when they come right out of the oven, they're hot, but then when they've cooled a little bit, but they're still warm, is when they're the best. That was those were the best. And later on, I didn't love them as much later. Although this morning, just before we hopped on here, I put one in the toaster because it was small enough.
Yeah.
And warmed it up, and then it was perfect again. So I would suggest they need to be warmed up, like either in the oven or the toaster.
Okay.
That's how I ate them when I eventually rescued them from the barbecue when you dropped them off at my place.
So let's talk about the pretzel before we get into the cheese dip. What did you think of the pretzel?
It was good. I loved it. The kids loved it. Kids
I
have
thought it could be
requested for it.
crispier on the outside. I expected a little more crisp on the outside, but I mean, as soon as you texted me and told me that you were bringing them over, I didn't get home until like 5 o'clock. All I thought about for 4 hours was, I can't wait to go home and eat these pretzels. And I got home and I opened the bag and I was like, oh, I was expecting, like when you go to the pretzel stand in the mall, they give you that like huge, gigantic thing that you could never finish. Yeah. I was praying for that because I was so hungry, and it was all I thought about. But these are really more good.
Like bagel size, or loaf of bread, piece of bread size. Like they fit perfectly into my toaster, this little pretzel.
Yeah.
So if you wanted it to be crispier on the outside, would you then leave that in the oven, you think, for longer, or in the water for longer?
Good question. I have been thinking about that too, and I'm not sure.
Because you don't want that metallic taste, right? So you don't want to leave it in the water for too long.
Yeah. But also I think they could have been baked a little bit longer, but really they were like, when they first came out, they were like perfect. I think it's the sitting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like you either need to warm them up again, I would say in an oven or a toaster oven, or make them right before you want to eat them.
Right. Because I was thinking of doing this for the kids' lunches, right? Like this, I think would be a great recipe for it.
I put them in the kids' lunches today, and I didn't warm them up.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how they're going to go over. I don't know what they're going to think. They loved them yesterday. I don't know if they're going to love them in their lunch. I'll probably hear complaints later from one in particular who likes to complain about everything I put in his lunch. Yeah. Okay. So I also made a beer cheese dip.
Oh, yes. Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about the dip. Why don't you guys tell me what you thought of it while I bring up the recipe?
So for the amount of pretzels that you gave us, compared to the ratio of beer cheese dip that we had, I can tell you that we had a lot of that dip. It was so good. And we had a lot left. And my husband asked, like, hey, are we like throwing this out? And I'm like, absolutely not. I'll find another way to eat this. Even if it's just with the spoon, it doesn't matter. Nobody's throwing this out because it was so good.
It's in my fridge. I've already put tortilla chips on my list because I'm just going to go buy some tortilla chips.
Great idea. Yeah.
And heat that stuff up and eat it all by myself without anybody else.
Yeah.
That's my plan right now.
Shit.
We'll see if it makes it that far, because I may just end up eating it with a spoon, like you said, Sarah.
Yeah.
I might not get to the chips.
Yeah.
Wow.
I really liked it. Well, all of us liked it. Yeah.
Loved that.
The recipe makes a lot. I was like, I could have given you more. There was so much. I have so much dip, and the kids weren't really crazy about it.
Oh, okay.
My husband liked it, but he likes kind of everything. He's always like, yeah, this is good. Everything I make, he's just like, oh, that was good.
Is he just afraid to criticize you because you
maybe.
don't bite the hand that feeds?
I think he's learned at some point that you always just say thank you, that was great, and
Move on.
and just leave it there. Your chances are better.
And continue to live.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he did eat it up, so I think he liked it. But I'm not sure. I wasn't in love with the dip. I think the texture, maybe today if I like rewarm it or something, I didn't love the texture of it, but I have trouble with a homemade cheese sauce. Like it never seems as creamy and smooth as it's supposed to be.
When you make your roux, how long do you cook your flour in the butter?
Until it seems smooth. Maybe I'm not cooking it long enough.
I cook mine until it browns.
It was browning for sure.
And I find that has been the key to getting my sauce a bit smoother, but it's still never as like creamy smooth because I'm pretty sure all the commercial stuff has plastic in it or plasticizers.
Yeah, like a
I
homemade
see.
version.
Right.
I know that it's not going to be perfect like that, but I just somehow I wasn't really super happy with the texture. Let me tell you what's in it while we're talking about it. You've got unsalted butter, all-purpose flour, milk or half and half. I use 2% because that's what I had. Beer, Worcestershire sauce, Dijon mustard, garlic powder, paprika, salt, and cheddar cheese.
How much beer was it again?
So it was 2/3 of a cup or 160 mils of beer. And I had a wheat beer because that's what we happen to have. And I think if you had a darker beer, it would have had more beer flavor. Like I imagine whatever the beer is going to change the flavor, whatever kind of cheese you use. I just had an aged cheddar that I used.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably mix it up. You could probably kind of adjust to your taste.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yum.
I wonder if that's why I liked it, because my daughter and I have the same issues with cheese. Sometimes it works for us and sometimes it doesn't, but just about all the time we super taste cheese. I think because the body is just kind of going, be careful with this ingredient.
Right.
We both loved this dip, and I wonder if it's because the beer in it kind of helps.
Because there's not as much milk.
Right. And also maybe the fermentation in the beer, because when we take probiotics and have cheese, our bodies are a little bit happier with it. So I really like the fact that it wasn't all that creamy.
I think it could have been better just for me, but I like the pretzel just on its own, so I wasn't too worried about it. I did think I got a little heavy-handed with the salt on the pretzels. Could have maybe had a little less salt, even though I love salty.
I don't know.
The salty stuff.
I was happy as a salt lover.
That's good. It did really have that pretzel flavor. Like I kind of wondered because I was like, where does that even, I don't really know where that comes from. And the dough seems so simple, but it doesn't taste like a dinner roll, like it definitely has
I think it's the bitterness from the baking soda is that's going to be my official guesstimation.
So when she says there's going to be a metallic taste if you put the dough in for too long in the boiling water, is that what makes that metallic taste, is the baking soda?
I would think so, yeah.
Why do you put baking soda into the water if it's going to cause a metallic taste?
So what I have Googled, and so has Erin, so between the two of us, we should be able to figure this out.
The Google experts are in the house.
Okay, so this source says the process of boiling it before it's baked with the baking soda or lye, as is the original method, essentially gelatinizes the outside of the dough, which gives it that golden brown color and prevents the inside of the dough from rising like a bread. So it gets a chewy, slightly crispy crust with the signature pretzel flavor, while the soft center remains soft and doughy.
Yes, I have the same. I have a very similar source. There's something to do with the baseness.
The pH level.
It makes it basic, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about the taste of baking soda, like if you're just going to go and taste baking soda, it tastes kind of metallic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I assume that you want a little bit of that on your pretzel, but not a lot of it.
Right.
I kind of think the salt balances that out as well, because you've got that sort of that distinct flavor and then that like hit of salt. I think it would be weird to have one without salt. Like I feel like that balances it. But I don't know, maybe that's just my taste buds. It's science hour, folks.
It's science.
Cooking is a science.
It is.
Push up your glasses. Yep. So there you go. Now you have a new snack you can make. I recommend making it right before you want to eat them because that was when they were the absolute best. Or reheat, like I said, put it in the oven or a toaster oven or something. I'm going to wait and see what the kids say about how it survived in a lunchbox. Don't have high hopes for it, but we'll see. And I did see a recipe when I was looking at how to stuff them that had cheese and rosemary and maybe garlic in the middle of it. Like it was, I think you could put all those things in it, on it.
I must go eat now. I am suddenly very hungry.
Let me know how they turn out if you make them.
Oh, for sure.
I would be curious about variations. This weekend already. Okay, awesome. And now for the fine print. We at Three Kitchens gratefully acknowledge we are telling these stories in the traditional territories of the Treaty 7 nations in southern Alberta and the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We honor the rich tradition of oral storytellers on this land who have come before us. You can find pictures and recipe links on Instagram and Facebook at Three Kitchens Podcast. If you like and subscribe on your podcast player, that helps more people find us.
These pretzels are making me thirsty!